Research on emotional connection during intimacy consistently points to specific psychological and physiological factors, not physical technique, as what women most reliably report experiencing as meaningful, and this finding shows up so consistently across independent studies that it's genuinely surprising how few men have ever encountered it directly. Today, we're reviewing what the actual research shows about what creates genuine emotional closeness between partners, the underlying neurochemistry involved, and why understanding this changes how couples navigate this part of their relationship over time, not just in a single moment. Genuine emotional connection depends fundamentally on the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch of your nervous system associated with safety, rest, and calm, being the dominant state in a given moment rather than its counterpart, the sympathetic nervous system, which governs alertness and the stress response. When someone feels rushed, anxious, distracted, or uncertain about where they stand, that stress response remains at least partially engaged, and this directly interferes with the physiological processes underlying deeper emotional connection, regardless of how caring or well-intentioned the other partner might genuinely be. This isn't abstract psychological theory dressed up in scientific language. It's measurable physiology, documented consistently across multiple distinct research areas examining human bonding, attachment, and stress response, meaning a rushed, anxious interaction and a genuinely unhurried, safe one represent two different physiological events playing out in the body, even when they might look broadly similar to an outside observer. Before continuing further, a brief but genuinely important note that applies throughout this entire video. Everything discussed here reflects population-level research patterns identified across large groups of people studied over time, not a guaranteed formula that applies identically to every individual relationship. Every couple carries its own unique history, communication style, and circumstances, and these findings function best as a general, evidence-informed framework to draw from, not a rigid checklist to apply mechanically without regard for your own specific relationship and partner. Oxytocin, frequently referred to as the bonding hormone, is released during close physical and emotional contact between partners, and research consistently finds that its release is measurably amplified under a specific identifiable set of conditions: genuine emotional safety, unhurried presence rather than rushed urgency, and authentic focused attention directed toward the shared experience, rather than distraction pulling focus elsewhere or anxiety-consuming mental bandwidth that would otherwise support genuine connection. This represents a documented, measurable physiological event captured repeatedly in research settings, not simply a vague, subjective feeling that resists objective study or measurement. This helps explain something a great many people have genuinely experienced firsthand without ever having accurate language to describe what they were actually noticing in the moment. Two experiences that might look outwardly quite similar can nonetheless produce noticeably, sometimes dramatically, different senses of closeness and connection afterward. And that meaningful difference tracks consistently with the underlying psychological and physiological conditions present: safety, presence, genuine attention, rather than with any specific action or technique that might have looked nearly identical from an outside vantage point. We're now roughly halfway through this video, and this represents a meaningful shift in what we're discussing going forward. Everything covered up to this point establishes the underlying physiological mechanism, why safety and presence matter so much at a biological level. What follows moves toward the specific, identifiable behavioral patterns research most directly links to that same underlying mechanism, translating the science into something genuinely actionable rather than leaving it as abstract theory. Research consistently finds that outcome-focused approaches, treating shared, intimate moments as a task oriented toward reaching some specific result efficiently, are frequently sensed by a partner on some level, even when neither person involved can fully articulate exactly why a particular interaction felt subtly different from another. This connects directly back to the nervous system mechanism already discussed, since outcome focus tends to activate the same stress response patterns discussed earlier, rather than supporting the safety-oriented, unhurried state that genuine connection consistently depends on, according to this research. This pattern tends to develop gradually and unconsciously rather than representing any kind of deliberate choice. Much of how people, particularly men, are broadly taught to approach challenges throughout their lives, efficiently, competently, moving decisively toward a clearly defined goal, gets unconsciously applied here as well, even though it represents a genuinely mismatched framework for something that depends far more on unhurried presence and mutual attunement than on efficient execution toward a predetermined endpoint. Recognizing this as a learned, culturally reinforced pattern rather than a fixed, unchangeable trait is itself genuinely useful, since patterns learned indirectly can, with conscious attention and practice, also be unlearned and replaced with something considerably more aligned with what the research shows actually produces genuine connection between partners. Survey research examining long-term couples consistently finds that a considerable number of women don't voice preferences, concerns, or feedback directly in this specific area of a relationship, often for genuinely understandable reasons worth taking seriously rather than dismissing. Some avoid the topic out of not wanting to seem critical of a partner they genuinely care about. Others have had previous experiences in this relationship or an earlier one where offering honest feedback was met with defensiveness or withdrawal, understandably making it feel considerably riskier to raise the topic again in the future. And a great many people simply never developed a comfortable, established language for having this particular kind of conversation, since it's rarely modeled openly within most people's broader upbringing or social environment growing up. Whatever the specific underlying reason in any individual case, the net effect researchers consistently observe across these studies is the same. The absence of a stated complaint is not reliable evidence that everything is working as well as it genuinely could within a relationship. This directly contradicts a natural, intuitive assumption many people carry that silence implies satisfaction by default unless something is specifically raised. Couples who actively build regular, low-pressure communication about this general topic into their relationship, deliberately, outside of any specific intimate moment itself where emotions and vulnerability tend to run considerably higher, consistently report meaningfully higher satisfaction than couples who avoid the topic entirely and rely instead on assumption or simple guesswork to navigate this part of their relationship together. Before continuing, if you want a broader framework for men's health after 40, including how physical vitality and hormonal health genuinely connect to relationships and emotional connection, Dr. Emily Carter's guide, The Iron Age, the complete blueprint to reclaiming testosterone, strength, and vitality after 40, covers testosterone, strength, energy, and vitality across 9 focused chapters within a concise 14-page format. It's priced at $49.99, with the link provided directly with this video. It's educational in nature, not a replacement for professional relationship or medical counseling, but it offers a genuinely clear, practical framework connecting these interrelated areas of health together. If everything discussed throughout this video had to distill into a single unifying principle, it would genuinely be this: emotional safety functions as the actual physiological foundation everything else depends on, not a secondary optional consideration layered on top of physical experience after the fact. A partner who feels genuinely safe, genuinely valued, rather than simply present, and genuinely free from judgment or unspoken pressure, experiences measurably different physiological responses than a partner navigating any meaningful degree of anxiety, distraction, or uncertainty about where things stand between them. This is worth sitting with directly, because it reframes the entire question many men start with when thinking about this general topic. It's rarely, according to this body of research, about mastering some specific technique or approach. It's fundamentally about creating and consistently maintaining the underlying psychological and physiological conditions, safety, presence, honest communication, under which genuine connection can actually develop and deepen naturally over time, rather than being forced or performed in any given moment. Research examining couples years or decades into a relationship consistently finds these underlying principles don't diminish in relevance over time, they compound and become increasingly significant. Consistent emotional safety becomes considerably more meaningful when set against the backdrop of a genuinely shared history spanning years together. Genuine presence helps prevent the sense of predictability or emotional flatness some long-term relationships gradually experience without either partner fully understanding why, and ongoing honest communication actively prevents accumulated, unspoken assumption from becoming entrenched and considerably more difficult to address the longer it remains unaddressed between two people who genuinely care about each other. For couples navigating menopause and the years surrounding it, research finds the physiological process described throughout this video. The parasympathetic activation, the gradual buildup toward genuine connection, often requires more unhurried time and more deliberate presence than it may have required at a younger age. This isn't a decline worth being concerned about. It's a normal, well-documented hormonal shift, and it means the principles discussed throughout this entire video. Safety, presence, communication become considerably more relevant, not less, as couples move through this stage of life together, even though broader cultural conversation around this general topic tends to focus disproportionately on younger relationships navigating earlier years. Research on long-term couples also finds that communication patterns established relatively early in a relationship tend to persist and compound over subsequent years and decades. This means couples who successfully build open, low-pressure communication habits early tend to maintain and even strengthen that same pattern as they age together, while couples who avoid this topic entirely in earlier years tend to continue avoiding it for years or decades afterward, unless something specific, a health change, a deliberate conversation, content like this video prompts a genuine shift in that established pattern. Something that connects directly to nearly every other topic covered on this channel deserves mention here as well. General life stress, whether from work demands, financial pressure, health concerns, or simply the accumulated weight of daily responsibilities, measurably affects a couple's overall capacity for the kind of presence and connection this entire video has been examining in depth. Chronic background stress keeps the nervous system's stress response at least partially engaged, even during moments specifically intended for connection, meaning a couple can apply every single principle discussed throughout this video correctly and consistently, and still find the resulting experience feels somewhat incomplete if one or both partners happen to be carrying significant unaddressed stress from entirely unrelated areas of their life. This is precisely why addressing sleep quality, effective stress management, and overall physical health, themes covered consistently elsewhere on this channel, connects directly back to this specific topic rather than existing as some separate, entirely unrelated concern. A man managing chronic work stress, poor sleep, or unaddressed anxiety is working against his own efforts to build the kind of presence and safety this video describes, regardless of how well he understands the underlying research itself. It's worth addressing a pattern that sometimes develops once men first encounter this research and genuinely want to apply it. Rather than integrating presence and genuine attentiveness gradually into ordinary daily interaction, some men swing toward the opposite extreme, sudden, intense, performative attention that feels disconnected from their normal, established behavior. Research on relationship perception suggests partners frequently notice this kind of sudden shift and interpret it as somewhat inauthentic or strategic, particularly when it appears abruptly rather than developing gradually, which can paradoxically reduce trust rather than build the genuine safety this entire video has been discussing. The research-supported approach involves modest, genuinely sustainable adjustments woven naturally into existing routines rather than a dramatic, sudden overhaul of behavior. Another common mistake involves treating this research as a single insight to apply once and then consider permanently resolved, rather than as an ongoing practice requiring sustained attention. Couples who maintain the deepest, most stable sense of connection over years and decades aren't the ones who found some singular permanent fix at one specific point in time. They're the ones who treat communication, presence, and mutual attentiveness as an ongoing, evolving practice that continues adapting as both partners age and circumstances naturally change. So here's the bottom line to take away from everything discussed throughout this video. What research consistently shows creates genuine emotional connection isn't a specific technique or approach, it's safety, presence, and honest communication working together, three factors that predict genuine closeness considerably more reliably than anything else this body of research has consistently examined. Three practical takeaways worth carrying forward. Prioritize genuine presence over any sense of outcome focus, since research consistently shows this factor matters more than almost anything else studied. Build regular, low-pressure communication into your relationship rather than assuming silence automatically means satisfaction. And recognize that emotional safety functions as the foundation everything else depends on, not a secondary consideration to address only after something else feels wrong. If any of this resonated with your own experience, that's genuinely worth discussing directly and openly with your partner. The Iron Age Guide is linked with this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.